Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. Week 1 recap. Of course, it's the All We Do Is Talk podcast. I'm here with Moody and Isaiah. What's going on, guys?
What's up, y'all? What a great weekend for some football. I know not everybody's lucky enough to be like me, 1-0, but let's continue. Let's talk about these football games that I enjoy.
Hey,
What a world we in that the Giants are on top in the NFL. It's ass
Plot
backwards.
twist. Y'all was talking all that shit about who was going to be scoring touchdowns. Yes, who was going to be scoring touchdowns for the Dallas Cowboys?
Nobody.
Nobody. Yeah.
I remember the Panthers were 3-0 at one point last year, so pump the brakes. All right, so let's get into it. Thursday night, Bills going to LA and they win 31-10.
Yeah, this is exactly what I said in the preview show. The Bills were showing up to beat that ass, and the ass was beat. The Rams had no chance. Matthew Stafford's elbow did not look great. The offensive line looks like it's in decline. And outside of Cooper Kupp, they don't have any weapons that scare you. Allen Robinson was a complete no-show. The Bills showed up with a lot of fury, a lot of aggression, a lot of motivation, and they took care of business. Looked like the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, Bills just cemented the hype for one more week. They look like by far the best team in the NFL. Offense is Josh Allen looks like he's reached that final form. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis were taking turns on Jalen Ramsey. The offensive line, the Bills' offensive line, which has no big names on it, has always been effective. Now, I did say Josh Allen did take a little bit too much hits, so hopefully he can stay healthy. But excuse me, Rams O-line looks bad. Stafford looks like he's been fighting injuries, not getting lots of practice. Allen Robinson finally gets a good quarterback, and we need an APB out for him. And Jalen Ramsey, I told you I didn't see him as the best corner in the NFL. He allowed a perfect passer rating, which means they're doing whatever they want to him. So only Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald earned their money this game. So Rams got to go back to the drawing board. I'm sure they'll be fine, unless that offensive line stays terrible. And the Bills, they just got to stay healthy, and they're going to get back Trey White. And what's the Trey White? Oh, and they're going to get Curry Elam coming along. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really only surprised on the dominance of this game. I thought I picked the Rams just because I took whoever had the points I was going to take, but I'm surprised on how dominant the Bills looked over the Rams. All right, let's keep it going. Do y'all want to go Monday night or Sunday night? Which one do y'all want to go?
We got to say Monday night. We got to go with Sunday night first. We'll get to Monday night. Sunday night's going to be quick and easy.
All right, so Sunday night, Tampa Bay takes down Dallas 19-3.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that Dallas was the most pathetic team in the NFL through week 1. I don't even think it's really that close. That's what happens when you start Noah Brown and Dennis Houston at wide receiver. No one knows who those guys are, and they got what they deserved. I was talking all off season and during the preview show that the Cowboys deserved a 5-12 season. They look well on their way. They look well on their way to making that dream come true. And for Tampa Bay, their defense is still solid. They still have a bunch of good players on there. You still like Carlton Davis. Devin White was really, really good. Vita Vea and Akeem Hicks up the middle, obviously. Stud defensive players. Todd Bowles calling that defense. Defense is going to be solid. I have real concerns about the Bucs OL, though. Donovan Smith went down with a shoulder thing halfway through the game. They're still missing their left guard and center. It's not a very good offensive line. It's going to be a struggle for Tom Brady, but he has enough weapons on the outside to be able to compensate for it, and that's how they were able to fall into 5 field goals and a touchdown. Overall, gigantic snooze fest. The Bucs are the Bucs, though. Tom Brady's going to have those guys in contention, and the Cowboys, they need to be putting the TNT on the entire season.
Yeah, game was total snooze fest. I was in bed by halftime. Cowboys came out looking like they're undermanned on the offensive line and at receiver. I'd say the only Cowboys player that played good in that game on offense was Tyler Smith, surprisingly, which is a bright side because he's going to be a left tackle. But every single other player on that offense looked like, and Zach Martin, Zach Martin. He's a guard, so if your guard's the only player playing at the top level, you're not going to be like moving the chains or anything like that. They sucked. Tampa Bay looks like they're going to be a defense. They got a defensive coach now, so no more of that risk it, no biscuit type of style. Looks like they're going to be run the football, play defense, and coast through the air. That's all. I don't know how strong they are because if that OL is not going to get better, then Tom Brady is not going to be protected at all. But they look like they're going to be a defensive team, which is actually more scary because defensive teams tend to finesse through the playoffs as long as they have good quarterback play. So
especially Tom Brady teams.
Setting up the script real nice to get them where they need to be. They're gonna coast all year, and Mike Evans makes what would be the play of the game, but we'll talk about the play of the game later. The play of the games, all of the weekend.
Moody, are you not impressed with your defense holding Tom Brady to the 19 points? I thought they showed pretty well, like bend but don't break style defense.
Like I said in the preview show, the Cowboys defense is probably going to look better than people expect. I took the under very easily because I think Micah Parsons, he's probably the best defensive player in the league, if not one or two or three. He's that good, and he can single-handedly carry the defense to prominent levels. They just don't have an offense to match it.
Isaiah, is the primetime play Leonard Fournette's block on Micah? Is that the play we're talking about?
No,
I saw that in real time, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
They got him. You didn't see it coming.
Yeah, he got.
It's a year two. We're not just gonna have you teeing off on people.
Still had 2 sacks.
Yeah.
He. But I got my play of the weekend is coming up. It's near and dear to my heart, and I think it was a pretty game-winning play. But that's it for that primetime game. Let's move on to part 1 of the revenge games, because part 2 is going to be the next game after this for sure. So the first revenge game we're going to go over, I guess, is Geno Smith out-dueling Russell Wilson in his comeback to Seattle game. No one had that on their bingo card. No one had that on the bingo card that Geno Smith would play such a clean game. I'm sure Russell Wilson was disappointed to see the offensive line play looked the best it's ever had. I wonder, question, because the Denver's offensive line play looked all of a sudden extra suspect. So that might be tough for Russell Wilson to have seen. And all I got to say is Tom Brady wouldn't let his defensive coach that he had for his whole career beat him in this revenge game. That's all I got to say. I guess that's all I got to say about that.
There's a difference between Russell Wilson and the greatest quarterback of all time. But like you look at Russ's numbers, they were fantastic across the board. It's almost like he went from Pete Carroll to Pete Carroll. That's really what this game looked like here. Russell Wilson numbers look spectacular.
His numbers are lying though, because he missed a few. He was inaccurate in the first half. He calmed down and got back into his thing. And I guess like they didn't play another team that didn't play starters during the preseason, so this is gonna be their preseason, but he didn't look like a $250 million quarterback out there.
Well, here, regardless of what Russell Wilson looked like, you can't have both of your running backs fumbling inside the 5-yard line.
Yeah,
it just
they should have won the game. They should have won the game. Like
they should have won the game going away. It was absolutely no reason for the game to end up in that situation. They
we haven't even talked about the end of the game situation. It's just the end of the game situation has allowed the Denver Broncos to off the hook for how terribly they played for the first 50 minutes of that game. Terrible. They played terribly. Russell Wilson was inaccurate, like you said. Both running backs fumbled on the one, which
it gives Russell Wilson more 1-yard PTSD. Like it's not good for the brand.
He went from Pete Carroll to Pete Carroll. You hate to see it. It's the same situation with different names.
And yes, I would definitely prefer to go for it on 4 for 5 than kick a 60. If your kicker tells you you're good from 64, and you're gonna take that at face value, like he said he's good from 64.
He thought he was in Denver. He thought he was still in Denver. Not disastrous. Absolutely disastrous.
Yeah, he must have not seen the kicking. You're a rookie coach if you're believing in your kicker getting the job done. He's new to this, so
especially on this Sunday where no kickers were coming through at all.
Well, that can be a great bridge to the one kicker that did come through, with the Cleveland Browns edging out the Carolina Panthers 26-24.
We're moving on to revenge game part 2. It was the warm-up. I can't believe 2 quarterbacks went back to revenge games to lose to their backups, starting for their old teams. What type of script writing is that?
Well,
and I'm not surprised. I thought It's simple as this. I thought the Cleveland Browns would dominate in the trenches, and they dominated on the trenches with Myles Garrett on defense and Clowney on defense, and they surprisingly were even more dominant on offense in the trenches against that Carolina front. So hopefully if that Carolina front is for real, then this Cleveland offensive line might be something different. But yeah, they just dominated in the trenches. Jacoby Brissett was terrible. Baker Mayfield was terrible for a half, and then he turned it on. I'm gonna let Eric go through some more things, talking points here. What you see out there, Eric? What happened out there?
I mean, this team was definitely better than any version last year. Last year was the worst quarterback play in the NFL. So to see some explosive plays out of Baker this year, it's to grow. We're not going too crazy, but at least seeing capable quarterback play was the nicest thing to see, in my opinion.
I don't know. I saw in that first half, I saw a lot of balls that got tipped and hit the ground.
He's still new to the system. Still new to the system.
Yeah, I'll give him that excuse.
It's week one. Week one has never mattered less in the NFL, especially with the additional game. This is preseason week number 4 for a lot of teams, especially teams starting new quarterbacks. I just expected more from the Panthers defense, to be honest with you. They put a lot of investment, a lot of money into that front seven, a lot of high draft picks, and they got ran over. Absolutely ran over by Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. It looked like they had no shot. It was really, really discouraging to see what should be the strength of the team not coming through. You can see McCaffrey got his rhythm going as the game went on. It took him a little while to get himself together. That probably is what cost them the win, because it took him too long to get going on offense. We saw a Robbie Anderson revival, maybe. The guy who was screaming no to Baker Mayfield might be the guy who saves his career. We'll see about.
You would have never seen a play like that with Sam Darnold quarterback last year. Like, you would have never seen that.
Actually, no, Eric. In 2019, I watched Sam Darnold hit a 95-yard touchdown to Robbie Anderson for the New York Jets against the Dallas Cowboys. So I have seen it. He is capable. But nonetheless, great win for Cleveland, for a team that's still trying to be in the playoff race without their starting quarterback. Getting a win like this on the road, you got to say a whole lot about Kevin Stefanski and the job he did there.
It's that simple. They needed 5 before Deshaun got back. That's 4 down to 4 now. If they could get 4 more wins before Deshaun gets back, this AFC playoff race is going to get even wilder. So the next exciting game from the
Let's go Sunday, to Cincinnati.
Broncos. You want to go straight to that? I was going to warm up with Detroit versus Philly, but you want to go straight to the
let's go straight to the Pittsburgh wins 23-20. If you didn't think Pittsburgh was getting up out of here at any point in this game, I don't know what to tell you. It's crazy how much the NFL helps the Steelers. It is unbelievable. You get 2 bad snaps. Unbelievable, dude.
Like I told y'all all of last year. We said it in the week 1 preview. And this is Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin we are talking about. It doesn't matter what the names are. They went 500 with Duck Hodges. As much as we talk about Mitchell Trubisky, he way better than Duck Hodges. Pittsburgh's going to get the job done. But the real story here is how bad Joe Burrow and the offensive line looked in Cincinnati. They spent a lot of money, Alex Kappa, Lyle Collins, to try to rebuild that unit. They got Jonah Jackson out there as well, and they look like the offensive line from the last 2 years. Completely, totally, unbelievably overwhelmed in every way, shape, or form. TJ Watt was throwing Lyle Collins this way and that, as long as the entire offensive line as well. It was not a good look. 5 turnovers for Joe Burrow, who seems to be the closest thing we have to Tom Brady in terms of hanging in games, no matter how poorly he plays. And that's another way he did it here. Great game from Joe Mixon. T. Higgins' concussion obviously changed the math a little bit, because you could focus a little bit more on Jamar Chase, which didn't matter because he's still better than everybody on the field. But yeah, the real big story here is just how abysmal Joe Burrow, as many of the starting franchise quarterbacks looked in week 1, he was awful. And that's the reason why they didn't get out of here today.
I mean, yeah, Pittsburgh literally blitzed the fuck out of Cincinnati to start the game, forced 3 quick turnovers. The O-line, I'm going to give it some time. Consistency and cohesion are the key at offensive line. They just threw 5 new starters together, so it's going to take some time. The problem is Lyle Collins was getting taken out to the woodshed against a player that he's going to have to block 2 times a year. and that type of caliber player is what you'd hope he would be doing. And then Jonah Williams was getting dominated. So when guys are just losing matchups, it's just like, oh, it didn't look like scheme. It just looked like TJ Watt was better. And I love the way TJ Watt plays. He's the reckless abandon, which unfortunately caused the injury that he had, which caused the breakdown of his older brother, JJ Watt. I just love watching the way they play, though. It's just reckless, on fire, don't give a fuck, go get the ball. So he was killing it. He looked like he was trying to become the defensive player of the year in a single game. But Pittsburgh holds on because shenanigans start to ensue, such as missed kick, an injury to this long snapper that forces missed kick after missed kick.
That's the one that gets it. That's the one that makes it NFL script. Is the backup. Oh, these guys aren't winning. I don't care.
Buffalo Wild Wings hit the button, Eric. They hit the button.
Yeah, and then so once Cincinnati started doing that, I think Pittsburgh missed the kick too. So it was looking like a tie. We were going to get a tie to get Pittsburgh to the early tie, which it's coming sooner or later. I can see Pittsburgh being in a game like this literally every week for the rest of the season. So you tune in. They're the local game this year, so I'm sure against New England they'll be on some crazy stuff. But that's really it. Cincinnati got their shit together after they calmed down. They look like the better team, and I think they'll be better. And unfortunately, Pittsburgh lost TJ Watt, luckily not for the whole season, but if they survive this stretch without TJ Watt and win 3 games, they're gonna probably go to the playoffs no matter what. So Pittsburgh. Anything else to say?
It's Pittsburgh, man. Something else to say.
No.
Right.
So let's keep it going. I'm gonna jump to a 4:00 game.
You know which one I want to jump through?
The statement game. The statement game.
Hold up, we gotta jump.
Minnesota.
We gotta jump to the next batshit crazy game that was on some crazy shit. And you know I want to talk about my New York Giants coming back against the Tennessee Titans. We could hold off. We all picked Minnesota, so we weren't shocked. But none of us here picked the New York Giants to even cover. And they shouldn't have. They just somehow hung around. I will say Tennessee they look like the Packers. They don't have no weapons. Except Dontre Hillard can't be your number one receiver. You're not winning much. Tannehill was playing his ass off. Giants defense really did good against the run with some backup edge rushers who stepped up. But Tennessee looked like they had no weapons. And that's kind of – Giants don't have amazing corners, and they all had good games, except for Darian Holmes, who started getting cooked by unknown people in the end. But, yeah, Tennessee gets up early, but don't put the Giants away. Giants come out and get an explosive touchdown to Sterling Shepard. Who would have thought of all the receivers we've tried to replace him with, he's still the Giants' best receiver probably to this point. What a plot twist. Small Rondell Robinson gets hurt. Kadarius Toney's in the doghouse, and apparently Kenny Galladay's broken goods. So this year is going to be Daniel Jones to Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley's back. Started that campaign for comeback player of the year, and the player of the day, Dayball calls 2-point conversion, just says give the ball to Saquon and let him figure out the rest. The play of the game has to make the 2 defenders miss in the end, and Giants win their first opener in 6 years.
Yeah, Tennessee, that's rough. That's really, really rough to have a 10-point lead in the New York Giants and then a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter against the league's worst offense last year, and you couldn't close the deal on that. That's pretty poor. Tennessee's run defense looked abysmal. Saquon Barkley looked explosive and healthy and back. Let's see how long he can stay healthy. But if he's healthy and good to go, he gives the Giants offense a chance to score touchdowns every week, and that's exactly what he did for them. 164 yards on the ground. He was unbelievable. He was awesome. As for Tennessee's offense, Robert Woods, no show. Treylon Burks, no show.
Rookie.
Derrick Henry, no show. The best players on their offense didn't do anything all game. They hit a wheel route to Dontre Hilliard to give themselves what should have been the final margin, but they couldn't get their defense didn't hold up. They couldn't hold them in the end. It reminds me a lot of the Giants' win against New Orleans last year. They just hung in it until the final moments, and then they stole it in the end. That's exactly what they did that last year. That's exactly what they did this year. Great win. Giants over 500 for the first time in 7 years.
6 years. 6 years. 6 years. I just said it. I will say I also forgot to mention we had our weekly Daniel Jones fumble because the interior of the offensive line was terrible. Tackles were decent, but the interior was terrible. and he puts the ball on the ground instantly. And then we had a weekly boneheaded Daniel Jones interception. Hopefully the coach could yell out of him because he should not just chuck the ball to Saquon. He should try to throw a ball that's catchable for what he wants to run. He's a running back, not a receiver. We don't just throw the ball in his direction after staring him down and think he's going to just make something happen. So hopefully they can fix that. But Eric, talk to me.
I mean, yeah, I was going to bring up the same game that Moody brought up, how you hung in with a good team. It's going to be all right. I don't think Saquon's a home run hitter. I mean, he's going to get his explosive plays, but if you can limit those, he's really not a dynamic running back play to play. I don't think.
If he's giving you 24 touches for 200 yards, you're going to win a lot of games.
You're going to win a lot of football games. You're going to win a lot of football games.
I agree.
As long as he's giving you, if he's giving you 4 explosive plays a game, you're, especially since you know one of them is going to be super duper explosive. And credit to Kevin Byard, he's headed straight for the pylon as soon as Saquon breaks away, so he stops that from being a 90-yard run. But yeah, if you get 200 yards on 24 touches from any player, you're probably going to win, especially if he's a running back. Oh, yeah. Which leads us to the game Eric wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so let's get a quick talk about this. I think the statement win of the week, Vikings dominating the Packers 23-7.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, he can just join the list with Dak Prescott and Ryan Tannehill and Joe Burrow as week 1 quarterbacks who lost a weapon and looked abysmal without it. And that's exactly what it looked like here. Obviously, Christian Watson had the drop touchdown early in the game, which probably ruined all momentum because you know how Aaron is when his receivers aren't playing well. He's mentally not going to be into it as much as he normally is. And that's what it looked like. It was just an ugly effort all around from that receiving core. We think Devontae Adams in the Raiders game had more yards than the entire Green Bay receiving core themselves. I think that says everything you need to know about their offense right there. And they were also missing David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins, 2 top 10 offensive linemen, in my opinion. Didn't have either one of those guys. Their offense looked about what you expected to look like with those kind of weapons out there. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon looked solid. A.J. Dillon was really, really good. And they kind of limited Aaron Jones' touches, but both guys were perfect complements to each other. But you're not going to win games with your running backs doing all the work in the passing game, as Tennessee taught you. For Minnesota, Justin Jefferson, the Cooper Kupp role, awesome. The best, when you get to play that role and you get to get guarded by linebackers all the time, you're completely uncoverable. He was running wide open the entire game. He looked absolutely unreal. He was fantastic. He was amazing. They kind of took their foot off the gas because it was clear that Green Bay wasn't going to do anything on offense all day, so they could coast to the end. But yeah, Justin Jefferson looks as good as ever, and Minnesota has a really good win at home against the reigning division champions.
Yeah, I think this was the statement game for them for the division. Need them to win and predicted them to win. Justin Jefferson is an explosive dude. 9 catches, 184. It's averaging 20 yards a catch. That's insanity. And Kirk Cousins' best friend. So I'm sure he's loving Justin Jefferson for somewhat reviving his career. So Isaiah, flaunt about your boy Justin Jefferson.
He was open all day. He's on the fantasy team with Saquon. They single-handedly helped me put an ass beating on Eric this week. He was open all day. He's Cooper Kupp. And let me tell you something. No, he's not Cooper Kupp. He's got athleticism, superior athleticism. So he's gonna be running super duper wide open. And we saw that. There's film of him being covered by Jory Alexander in that game. Still didn't matter because guarding a superior receiver in the slot is not easy for anybody. With two-way goes with a player like Justin Jefferson, I mean, he's going to be running wide open all year. That'll carry their offense. I'm interested to see what happens when teams start bracketing because Adam Thielen didn't look so amazing in that game, but Jefferson was so open that it didn't really matter. But Dalvin Cook looked pedestrian, but they just handled Green Bay. It reminded me of Green Bay's game last year, Week 1 versus the Saints. Aaron Rodgers doesn't show up during camp, so nobody cares. He's going to bitch and moan for a week and then just go on an MVP type of tear, and nobody will remember the time that Justin Jefferson beat them single-handedly.
Continue on. We'll go to the shameful kissing your sister tie. Indianapolis and Houston ties it up at 20.
Yeah, Matt Ryan is another new quarterback. in a new situation with a lack of weapons. So it is not a surprise at all that he struggled out the gate. Houston loves taking guys to the limit in week 1, and that's exactly what we saw here. Damn, Indianapolis, that's rough. That's rough. But
Ew!
That's
Come
Eric's
on,
Super Bowl pick, Super Bowl champion. So hey, a little week 1 adversity. Maybe they got out of the way early. Every good team has to take a bad L to Rex Burkhead. That's just what happens to you. Sometimes you got to fall into a Rex Burkhead type of L because he somehow fell into 80 plus, 100 plus scrimmage yards, and he got the job done for their offense. Brandon Cooks is still Brandon Cooks. Larry Thompson, those guys, the offensive line's actually mediocre compared
now
to
they got a few pieces.
Yeah,
they got a great piece and a couple good pieces. Now it's just not. Oh damn, one starter. But yeah,
and I gotta give my guy shout out, Mr. Derek Stingley Jr., who is absolutely sensational in the football game. He broke up a couple of touchdown passes. He looked every bit like the guy who should have been drafted top 3 overall. He's going to be a life changer for that defense. Lovie Smith's a great head coach. Not a win, but as good as a start you can ask for the Houston Texans. And for Indianapolis, the hot seat gets hotter for Frank Reich.
That's not a good tie for Lovie Smith's gonna be sick. They were up 20-3.
I was going to say, this was a savior. I'm kind of happy for a tie.
Houston was dominating Indianapolis. Indianapolis looked like they picked up right where they left off, getting dominated. So they were getting dominated, and then Indianapolis, because they have a better quarterback and a better team, they walked them down. Luckily, it could have got if Houston was a good team, they would have lost this game by 20 easily. But then Indianapolis fights back, and then in overtime we get a missed field goal from Mr. Blankenship, which costs him his career probably. But he's a kicker, so those guys get recycled like nothing else. Brett Maher's back on the Cowboys, by the way. We didn't mention that. But yeah, Indianapolis storms back, and this doesn't finish the job. And they're probably going to start slow because they change quarterbacks every year. So the continuity between team and quarterback is different every year for the last 5 years. So the seat gets hotter for Frank Reich because things just don't look good. Isn't it? It's just irony. They're now a good team without stable quarterback play. When in the Andrew Luck era, they were a team with a good quarterback, but a bad team. So,
and yet they still lead the division. So at the end of the day, it's all good in the AFC South.
Oh, and like Moody said, player of the game would have been Derek Stingley. He looked amazing.
Yeah, I'm watching Red Zone all Sunday, and we get to midway through the second half, and I'm like, we haven't gone to Houston one time. And I look and I see it's 20-3, and I am sick to my stomach. But you look at the box score, and it's not like their offense was bad. They put up productive drives. It was just a lot of field goals. Yeah,
that sounds like a Matt Ryan team.
Huh?
That sounds like a Matt Ryan led team.
No. But Pittman looked great. My question is their second receiver, who's going to be behind Michael Pittman. But other than that, I'm not worried about the division. It's week 1. Don't overreact to week 1.
Don't underreact either.
All right, let's move on. We will go to LA, where Davante Adams came to town and put on a show, but the Raiders lose 24-19.
Oh, I don't have much to say other than as long as the Chargers keep Justin Herbert up healthy and they keep Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa healthy and Derwin James and get JC Jackson back, I don't see them losing many games.
Yeah, I have them winning the division, so I agree with you. I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah, the Chargers' big test comes on Thursday. Yeah, y'all know I wasn't really super high on the Raiders. I didn't pick them to make the playoffs. I picked them to be below 500. The Raiders, as usual, getting blown out early, kind of make it close late, don't finish the job, or sometimes they do. Just depends on what week it is and what Derek Carr we're getting. Hunter Renfrow took a little while to get involved because I think Carr was just over-invested on feeding Davante Adams, and it hurt their offense. And the inability to block those edges because they have a poor offensive line doomed their offense pretty much For the Chargers, Justin Herbert is fantastic. He turned DeAndre Carter into a weapon after Keenan Allen popped the hammy. We'll see how long it takes him to get back from that. Mike Williams, a complete and total no-show, and yet they still managed to put enough points on the board to get the job done. That speaks to Justin Herbert's talent. Just a really, really solid performance from him in their offense. The defense came up and made plays when they needed to, and they just won a gritty, hard-nosed division game at home. They weren't really at home because you could hear the Raiders fans the entire game, so they're basically playing mostly road games at home anyway. But they still managed to finish the job here. Maybe Herbert can actually get some fans for the LA Chargers. But overall, I'm excited. The Chargers' big test comes on Thursday against Patty. This was a fine start. They eased their way in, but Thursday against the Chiefs, that's what we really want to see.
Mike Evans, look me in the fucking face.
It's Williams. It's Williams.
Well, whatever your fucking name is. Cost me even a remote chance. Once I saw we were halfway through the game, no Keenan Allen, and we still only had one target for him, I was like, oh, this is over. It's a wrap.
They were doubling him. It was like, no Keenan Allen? Oh, cool. Let's just go take him out of the game for sure.
No targets, but only 2 targets? He's a $20 million quarterback.
Let's go take him out the game, and it opened up for now. All of a sudden, some guy named Palmer and Everett. Gerald Everett is out here looking like he belongs in the league. But yeah,
and I believe in the Chargers. The test is this coming up Thursday. But what was I going to say? Austin Eckler, you cost me an anytime touchdown parlay. I don't appreciate you at all for that. I hit 4 out of 5 legs. Don't appreciate it. Move on. Most of this is my gambling and selfish nature. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's go to Isaiah's blunder on his card, believing in the ATL over New Orleans. What was the final score of that one? 27-26.
I mean, it was a classic Atlanta choke job. That's all I have to say about this. Classic Atlanta choke job. I mean, they covered, so at least they helped me out there against the spread, but they were handling New Orleans, and then all of a sudden Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. And actually this game switched up to when Taysom Hill broke a 60-yarder and he juked one of the defenders for the Atlanta Falcons out of his shoes. This was one of the games that I highlighted on one of my screens, so I was for some reason crazy invested into this game and watched a lot of it heavily. I mean, it's just weird. It was a classic Atlanta choke job. They were doing so amazingly. Marcus Mariota was running the option. Saints seemed like they struggled against option quarterbacks because they had that problem with Philly too. And I can see that with the way they play defense, why they would have a problem like that. But Atlanta was doing everything was working. Cordell Patterson was trucking over defenders. Kenyon Drake and Kyle Pitts were doing a little bit of good work. And then they were doing nothing. Their defense was playing decently, and then everything flipped. Classic Atlanta choke job.
Yeah, there ain't a team better than 3.75 quarters of Atlanta Falcons. That's the best team in the NFL. But but in that last little bit stretch of the game, you just know they're gonna fall apart. Like Isaiah said, Atlanta had a rolling. Cordell Patterson was getting fed the rock, and he was doing his thing. They were moving the ball, and then in the second half, they couldn't do it at all. Fourth quarter, they couldn't do it at all. Suddenly, they just lost all answers. Defensively, they had Jameis Winston struggling. He looked like he was easing back into it, coming off that knee injury. He also had a foot injury in camp as well. So Winston hadn't been practicing a whole lot, but they still found a way to get the job done. Kamara wasn't too much involved, but what Michael Thomas did to A.J. Terrell in the fourth quarter of that game was downright criminal. And that's exactly how Atlanta blew the lead, because Atlanta's best defensive player had no shot against Michael Thomas in the red zone, and an equal points going on the board at rapid succession. And once they cut the lead down, you knew where it was going from there. New Orleans steals the game at the end. Will Lutz, who missed all of last season for New Orleans, is now back, replacing Brett Maher, who was kicking for New Orleans last year. Will Lutz, one of the 2 or 3 best kickers in the league, in my opinion, came through clutch.
He's better than Brett Maher.
Definitely better than Brett Maher. And New Orleans gets the win that they should have had, but they made it harder on themselves.
Yeah, I mean, y'all have said it well enough. The classic ATL choke job, the return of the slant god himself, the demise of my fantasy team, him and the demon that is Antonio Brown were the cancers in my locker room. But he looks great. He came back, and I want the Saints to keep winning for Jameis Winston quotes at the end of the game. That's all I want. Eject those. God, they don't make sense, but they're amazing. Quotes into my vein.
Is that that's the bullshit he was talking about?
I don't know, dude. He was on one. I love it. All right, let's continue on to.
I want to just group these two NFC East games together. They're pretty similar.
Yeah, but I think the cover gods demand their 2 minutes of worship. This is how you get them to keep covering. You worship the cover god.
It's really unbelievable. It's really
so
unbelievable.
Philly's busting up on the Detroit Lions because at halftime, Jared Goff's 3 for 9 with 6 yards. And what can you do with that? What can you do with 3 for 9 and 6 yards at half? Nothing. Philly and a pick six, and then he throws a pick six. He was that, and then he threw a pick six. So it actually got worse instantly after they showed the stat. James Bradbury, former New York Giants, who was a cap casualty. We could really use a James Bradbury, so it's gonna be sad to watch him. AJ Brown's cooking on the other side. He's wide open, and then he's beating guys deep on the sideline. And then after the Eagles go up, Detroit does its thing.
Yeah, they do their thing, boy. Week 1, undefeated, never lost.
DeAndre Swift was running for the whole Detroit's offensive line looked real. It's just a shame because the Eagles play the same type of style, so they played at a better level with more talent and a quarterback that could run. At least Jalen Hurts can run. Jared Goff's terrible. I don't know how far. The playoffs look far as long as they got him playing quarterback for them, unless an offensive line like it's the best of all time. But yeah. All of a sudden Swift starts breaking long runs. Jamal Williams punches a couple in. My guy, Mr. Amon-Ra St. Brown scores a touchdown 3 minutes before his brother does. And Detroit's covering and literally scoring a touchdown just to take the Detroit scores a touchdown. It's a 3-point lead.
They know what's on the line. Yes, sir.
They're not even getting the ball back. They just scored.
Yeah, why not? Why not us?
Detroit scores the touchdown to cover it, and Eagles run the clock out. It was a classic Detroit Lions Dan Campbell game. If he wants to keep his job, all his games can't go that way. People are going to get tired of covering.
This is very typical Detroit Lions football. They if you look at the score, you think, oh man, Detroit this is a really good game, high scoring back and forth. It wasn't. Philadelphia kicked their ass the entire game. Really from start to finish, their offense looked completely dominant. They ran the ball on them. AJ Brown dominated them from the perimeter. Detroit's defense still bad. I thought it was still going to be bad. They don't really have a lot of big names on there. Philly has a dominant offensive line, and you saw it in action. They ran. Miles Sanders scored a touchdown for the first time in 2.5 years. It was just an overall excellent performance from Philly's offense. Detroit, Jared Goff he lost in the game in the first half, and as good as Atlanta is for the first 3.75 quarters is as good as Detroit is for the last 3.75 quarters. Detroit was just all of a sudden they just woke up and they were just getting the job done after being inept on offense for most of the first half. Amon-Ra St. Brown got going. DeAndre Swift looked fantastic. Jamal Williams snaked them up a couple of goal line touches for touchdowns. But this game was mostly being played in garbage time. Detroit, you can see the talent they have, especially in the offensive end, but they're not ready.
It's not a quarterback. It's not a quarterback.
Yeah. So let's go through these next 4 games. We're the bottom feeders of the league. So I'll just run through the final scores, and then we'll just.
Wait, we got to talk about Jacksonville, Washington.
Oh, you want to? All right. So Jacksonville, Washington, Commanders come out 28-22.
Carson Wentz activates Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Jaha Dotson.
Yes, sir.
That's good enough. That's good enough to be watchable football in DC this year. When I go watch the Washington football team play the Giants later this year, that sounds like a watchable offense. That's offensive line held up decently, surprisingly. Defense is still missing Chase Young, and apparently he's in the doghouse. But I mean, good win for Washington. Carson Wentz has his moments where he's just starts going a little too YOLO. Trayvon Walker made an amazing play. an amazing play on his interception. The first one is bad. The second one is ooh. A lot of guys getting caught by the defensive linemen on the screens nowadays. Those guys are athletes out there on the edge. But yeah, seeing those three weapons all score very effective touchdowns, 3 explosive ones from Johnson and McLaurin combined. I'm interested to see where they're going with this. Oh, and that's for Jacksonville? Oh, I'm jumping off the Trevor Lawrence train. That guy, he's a bust. He's probably gonna be a bust.
Wow. I was just gonna stay on the positive before you drop that bomb. Jahan Dotson, my wide receiver 1 in the draft, looked great. Had the game tying and game winning. Looked really good out there. Yeah, I'm glad when I'm right sometimes. It's pretty cool. All right, let's go to Isaiah's lock and the beatdown of Baltimore over the Jets. What was the score of that game? 24-9.
Lamar,
they scored a garbage time touchdown.
Lamar is basically Lamar. You can replace Ravens with Lamar. They got 21, and LOL. That's what you replace the Jets with. It didn't matter what they got. Lamar's trying to get a contract. Joe Flacco ain't elite, and he's playing quarterback for the Jets. Handled. Baltimore handled. This is probably the easiest game they'll play all year.
Yeah, it's the Jets. I mean, without their young quarterback, without anything, I mean, it's going to be a pretty brutal year because they're kind of like the Ravens were last year, where their injuries hit hard, fast, and early.
Yeah, this was the most irrelevant game of the weekend, probably. Obviously, we know Zach Wilson's not playing for the Jets. It's Joe Flacco. He has no future of doing anything there. The Jets' offense looked pretty rough for the most part. Joe Flacco had to throw the ball 50-plus times. Joe Flacco couldn't even throw the ball 50 times at his peak. He definitely can't do that shit now. So that shows a losing formula. But the Jets' defense, I thought, looked pretty solid. The secondary obviously is pretty bad at the cornerback position outside of Sauce, so they were getting cooked over the top. But other than that, I thought they did a really, really solid job on the Ravens' offense as a whole. But the Ravens were coasting the whole time. They really were just stiff-arming the Jets because the Jets had no chance.
Speaking of bad AFC East offenses, Miami handles the New England Patriots. Not a surprise. Patriots have struggled to beat Miami in Miami during the Tom Brady era in the back end of that. I don't know why Bill Belichick would pick Drew Judge and Matt Patricia to run his offense, other than the rumors are like this is it. He didn't want to deal with new people, and this writing on the wall that this is probably going up in flames. That all that banner space they opened up is going to be sitting wasting away for the next couple of decades probably.
Luckily, it's pretty full. Yeah. New England, you can add New England to the list of teams that like decided to go against the grain and just put bad offensive players out there, and you got bad offensive results, just like the Cowboys and the Packers and the Colts and other teams. You're just like, what are we doing out here? That offense looks like it has no chance whatsoever. Or Mac Jones, who actually still looks like a decent. He actually is the best player on the offense easily, in my opinion, and that's really, really rough to see because I don't think Mac Jones is anything special. For Miami, Tua runs up his win streak on Bill Belichick to 4, undefeated. Bill Belichick can't touch Tua Tagovailoa. Tyreek Hill looked really, really good. Saved Tua from an interception. Still looks like he's well worth his money and his ability and his skill set. Jalen Waddle scored the touchdown, obviously. They got Chase Edmonds involved. Offensive line leaked a little bit, but they still came together pretty well. Bill Belichick's defenses are still going to be tough to complete plays against, but Miami did enough on the offensive end, and defensively, they just shut down what's going to be a bottom-tier offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's just impressive how the speed that Miami has on their offense. It's really impressive. New England is abysmal, hard to watch. And I agree with you.
It's impressive how little speed New England has on their offense.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. All right, let's keep it moving. Last game is the typhoon that went through Chicago, right?
We're not going to, because there's something to talk about that one. So we're not going to this blowout. Kansas City just walks into Arizona and could have beaten them 65-0 if they
Patrick Mahomes had to go in there and go, I don't need Tyreek Hill to put up 40. That was pretty much that game. I don't need Tyreek to put up 40.
Pat Mahomes for MVP probably, and Kyler Murray's gonna have to hit those books hard this year.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, he came out with a vengeance. He's the best quarterback in the league. He put a stamp on that, made sure everybody and their mama saw it. That's Pat Mahomes. He did what he do.
And now the monsoon, I guess. Finish it up with the monsoon.
Yeah, now for probably the upset of the weekend, the Bears beat the 49ers 19-10.
I'm jumping on the Justin Fields bandwagon. I wasn't off it, but he was my third quarterback. I could clearly he's moving up to one. He's moving up to one easily. For him to pull off this win. Luckily, I think the monsoon helped the Bears a lot more than it hurt. Hurt the Niners? Nah, it helped the Bears a lot more. And it definitely hurt the Niners because they're an offensive team. An offensive team doesn't want to be playing in a monsoon, but a team that loves to play some Bears football with some defense, some running, and some.
I mean, I'm sure the 49ers miss George Kittle more than ever in a game like that compared to a fine, decent weather game.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, George Kittle's actually really hurt now. He's actually really hurt. He's getting hurt and leaving practice, so that's tough for them. But big ups to Justin Fields making it happen. Dante Pettis revenge game.
Yeah, Justin Fields was my QB1B, pretty much QB2 in the draft last year. Y'all know how high I was on him. And he a total carry job, a complete, total, unbelievable carry job. That offense is still bad. Their number one receiver, Darnell Mooney, had one catch for 8 yards. Their starting running back averaged 2 yards a carry. That's still not a good offense. There's still no talent on it. But Justin Fields is good enough as an individual to uplift the rest of the team and keep those guys in competitive situations. And then it was all about the weather. Monsoons make lesser teams look competitive, and that's exactly what we saw here. Niners defense still looked pretty good, but Justin Fields just made a couple more plays. And another person who you can add on the hot seat will be Mr. Trey Lance, because losing to the Bears is not a good look, no matter what the weather is. And if this continues for another week or two, the Jimmy Garoppolo calls will be getting loud. And that's going to hurt the QB room and the locker room chemistry.
Yeah, I want to know, since Justin Fields is going up and Trey Lance already dropped out of your –
No, it's Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence, you had already put bust in this podcast. So where does that leave Trey Lance for your QB1 of that draft?
The problem with Trey Lance is we know he's raw. But unfortunately, he's on. When Josh Allen was raw, Buffalo wasn't a contending team, so they didn't mind losing some games. The problem is San Francisco has won already with Jimmy Garoppolo, which is why they were supposed to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo to make sure that wouldn't be an option. But they're going to decide to go with a schism. I could say if Kyle Shanahan didn't want him and wants to get John Lynch shoved out, Trey Lance's career could already be in the balance of a bad place. That's how careers get messed up when the GM wants you, but the coach doesn't. RG3. And then Jimmy Garoppolo sticking around to make things worse. San Francisco might have put themselves in a bad situation with their bad decisions. But I mean, this is what they've been under this regime. High highs, low lows. High high, low lows. It's just what they've been riding. So I mean, we'll see. This is going to be interesting. I wouldn't be trying to pull Trey Lance because you're not winning a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo anyway. So you're just going to put him in to lose in the NFC Championship game against the real contender, or in the Super Bowl again against the AFC team that has the real contender. That's what they're hunting. They have no future with Jimmy, but if Trey Lance loses to the Seahawks next week, I'm sure this will become very, very interesting spot.
All right. Is that it for this pod?
Yeah, wrap it up.
MVP rankings, hot seat rankings. I think it's easy. I think we're definitely getting Frank Wright, Matt Rule, Bill Belichick. Those would be the three guys on my leading.
McCarthy?
No, his quarterback got hurt. He has the best experience.
He's not getting that again. He's not getting that again. Y'all heard it here first. Mike McCarthy doesn't make it to the Cowboys bye week. It's that bad for him there. You can hear it. Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones are blatantly blaming him for an offense that had no chance to succeed for not being successful. You can see it in the interviews. He's number one with the bullet for me on the hot list.
Yeah, I agree with the 3 Isaiah gave. I think Matt Rule will be I think he'll be looking for a college job in the offseason.
Bill Belichick will be looking for a retirement home.
Yeah, Bill Belichick will be somewhere in Florida, and
Frank Reich's going to Jacksonville with Doug Peterson. They all got a nice fallback plan. And I think MVP rankings is easy too. I got Mahomes, Allen, Herbert. Yeah, I think that's
in that order.
Mahomes, Allen, Herbert in that order.
I have the same 3 in the same order.
I have the same 3, but Allen ahead of Mahomes.
All right.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap. Catch y'all later. Remember, like, share, comment, subscribe, interact. 5 tools.
Yes, sir.